obviously I started as I think any of you sort of young drivers do out there, you sort of start in karting. And then I sort of progressed from karting through to cars. And then I think it's quite a natural step when you're finished sort of driving, you get into a bit of coaching. And then I think eventually sort of you want to run your own team, or it depends sort of in an odd way which way you want to go with it. I think some people, when they stop driving, almost go into business or different kinds of things. For me, it's quite nice sort of running your own team and seeing where all the real work really. When you're driving, I think everyone thinks it's easy. They don't understand what's actually going on behind the scenes. For me, it was just obviously I'd raced in F3 myself for a year. I knew F3 is kind of I call it the most historic sort of junior series really for young drivers. And from I guess an interesting point of view as well, technically, it's the last series where we can develop the cars. So for me, if you're going to have a team, you want to do something that's working with young drivers, where you can still have fun technically, and I guess where it's a stable sort of business as well. And F3 definitely, I think over the sort of last 20 years is one of the sort of most famous young series for developing young guys. I think also, the last few years with sort of F1 drivers, particularly Verstappen last year as well, has made everyone realise that it is sort of the place to be really. Yeah, so I've known David since I was actually probably 8 or 10 years old. He was a friend of my dad's. It's quite interesting. My brother actually drove for David as well. So kind of there's a big connection there, not just family, but also in racing terms. So when sort of I decided to start Hitech, it was a natural call to sort of give David a ring and ask him what he's doing and if he can help me. I think over the years he's ran a lot of teams. He's been very successful as a team boss, also as a race engineer, and for me it helps really. I'm only 28, so I need someone who sort of has the experience of it. I think it's a nice combination. I think also for me he's kind of I call him my racing father. He sort of takes care of the things that I'm unsure of, because like anything, I think in a new business there's always things cropping up. Yeah. For this season, um, I think obviously the main thing for us is you'd love to be able to fight for the championship. I think it's extremely tough, Formula 3. I think Prema has obviously dominated it for the last 8 years or something like that. Hopefully we can fight with them. I think it'll be not easy for sure. I think hopefully in sort of the drivers we've got a combination where the three of them can actually work together and hopefully put us at the top step of the podium. But I think we have to take it one race at a time. I always laugh, the media drum it up quite well, but I think it's definitely not easy to win in F3. And I think till we've won our first race, we can't sort of, how do you say, predict anything that's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's quite an interesting one. I think when people talk about team boss or owner, or I think particularly now in racing or in any business, lots of jobs gets merged sort of together. I think in my case, it's more, I call it, I'm the one who only gets to deal with the sort of problems half the time. But I think most of the time our team runs quite smoothly. I think we've got quite a strong management base with David. Is very much experienced in what he's doing, and John in the technical bit. So my sort of role really is more drawing everyone together and making sure most people are happy. I think the biggest part for us really as a new team is trying to make sure everybody's communicating and working together. That's a good question. I think it's a difficult one as well. I think you look at motorsport now and you see obviously, the ultimate sort of goal is F1 teams, that sort of level, but I think it's very hard these days for any new teams to go into something bigger. I think at the moment, sort of feet are firmly on the ground. We need to be successful in Formula 3, and I think after that we have to look at what else we can get into. I think it's quite interesting now with sports cars and Le Mans and that stuff, if that's something that our young drivers can feed into. I think it's difficult to predict anything. I think obviously you look at F1 now with quite a few of the team bosses having been bosses of young teams in F3, GP2. I think obviously that's quite a nice thing if we can build something here that is successful, but I think ultimately we need to win in F3 before we can sort of think where we're going to go long term. The most enjoyable part? I guess it's probably the day-to-day dramas that are quite insignificant but quite amusing. I think I think obviously winning, being part of something special is all something that makes the job rewarding. But I think the biggest thing is actually when you see the guys working here late at night and then you go to an event and you do well. I think that's nice. I think you're very proud of them. And also, I think in a new team, when you've seen, I mean, particularly even the workshop go from a shell into an operational sort of facility, I think it's quite nice. And then to see those cars at a track, the drivers working with the engineers, it's pretty fun. I think obviously as well the great thing of F3, you're working with young drivers who are kind of, they're on their way to F1, so it's nice that they're passing through your doors and you're able to help them. That's definitely one of the highlights. I mean, obviously, certain days, I think, like any job, you kind of question what you're doing, but ultimately, it's really enjoyable.